A current champion has confirmed that he is finished with Impact Wrestling. All this and more in today's Impact Wrestling news. Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there are plenty of news stories to get into in the world of Impact Wrestling. So let's start off talking about Jonathan Gresham. The Ring of Honor World Champion has confirmed that he is done with Impact Wrestling. Now, this is hardly surprising. Now, obviously, it ended in a bit of a whimper, his run with Impact Wrestling, considering he was booked for the last pay-per-view, but he couldn't attend or wrestle because of a concussion issue. But in an interview with Fightful Select with Sean Ross Sapp, Jonathan Gresham has confirmed that he is indeed done with Impact Wrestling. Now, he is actually signed officially with AEW / Ring of Honor. He's the current Ring of Honor World Champion. He's appeared on AEW television on Battle of the Bouts, defending his Ring of Honor World Championship. Now, at the time, he was still doing appearances with Impact. Remember that once Ring of Honor went into hiatus at the end of last year, he very quickly started making appearances for Impact Wrestling, where his wife, Jordynne Grace, also works. Now, this was at the time when the future of Ring of Honor was very uncertain. They were on hiatus. They were going to be coming back in April for Supercard of Honor, but this was prior to Tony Khan purchasing the company. And I think the feeling was, and he even said this at the time, he said, well, I'm not going to commit anywhere, certainly. I'm not going to sign with Impact. I'm not going to sign with AEW until I know what the future is of Ring of Honor. I am the Ring of Honor World Champion, and my intention is, once I find out what the status is with Ring of Honor, whether it's with Sinclair or a new owner or whatever, then I'll find out what's going on. If Ring of Honor isn't coming back, I think chances are he would have signed with Impact Wrestling, but it is coming back. It's owned by Tony Khan, so he's got that AEW / Ring of Honor contract, and he's going to be working there pretty much full time, whilst he will continue to do his Terminus shows and all that kind of stuff. Now, in this interview, he reiterated that Ring of Honor is coming back soon, and he's winding down his indie work as a result of that. So as I mentioned, those sort of indie shows, not that Impact Wrestling's an independent show, because it's not, it isn't, but I think what he means by that is those other companies that he's working for, whether it's Progress, which he did get stripped of the Progress World Championship, or Impact Wrestling, or those outside of Ring of Honor and AEW shows, he's just going to be doing less and less of them, maybe select dates, but that's not happening. Now, of course, he suffered a concussion back in April, and he said that he learned quite a bit about concussions as a result of that. Now, he was pulled from his last Impact Wrestling date. He was supposed to face Eddie Edwards at the Rebellion pay-per-view. Of course, that didn't happen. That was actually his last contracted, or I say contracted, but that was going to be his last Impact Wrestling date, and he has confirmed that he is finished up with Impact Wrestling for the time being. However, he did stress that he would be open to doing some work with them in the future. Now, I've spoken about this quite a bit recently when we spoke about Impact Wrestling and Honor No More and all that kind of stuff, that it's a difficult one, isn't it? Because what made Honor No More work so well, in my opinion, is that it did play off the real life situation as to what was happening with Ring of Honor. It did play off that no one knew what was happening with Ring of Honor, and they were on hiatus, and people were like, are they going to be coming back? And not just that they were on hiatus, but everyone on the roster was essentially released, or their contract was not going to be renewed. And because of that, there was all of this uncertainty, and it felt like, certainly to some of these wrestlers, it felt like, oh, have they just hung us out to dry? What's going on? So they came to Impact Wrestling as an outside invading force and sort of said there was no honor left in ROH, and now they came to Impact Wrestling on a crusade to show, to either attack places where there was no honor. And at that period of time, Jonathan Gresham was also doing appearances for Impact Wrestling. He was the Ring of Honor World Champion, and it did feel like at some point, and they did kind of tease this on Impact Wrestling television, it felt like at some point, whilst Eddie Edwards was revealed to be like their leader, it did feel at some point that maybe Jonathan Gresham would have this turn, and he was actually the mastermind, or the guy pulling the puppet strings from behind. And of course that never happened, and I think it was, again, just a really, really fluid situation. It was a situation whereby he was just coming in, working selected dates. And I think what you have to give credit to Jonathan Gresham for throughout this entire situation is that he's been very open and transparent. I feel, certainly, that when he came into Impact Wrestling, he said at the time, I really enjoyed it here. I think there were interviews with his wife, Jordynne Grace, where she said, I've been asking him to come here for ages, and I hope to be working with him more. I hope to be in the same company with him more. But he's a very in-demand guy, and he kept his options open. And I've said this a lot about people when they've been leaving WWE in the past. A lot of the time there is this assumption that, you know, if you're a somewhat big star, or you're a star that does have a little bit of credibility, that you leave WWE and you go straight to AEW. And whilst there was a period of time where that did make sense and that probably was the right thing to do, right now I'm not necessarily sure that is the right thing to do anymore. As I mentioned, I think it's really important that you keep your options open. I think that's really, really, really important that when you do leave WWE, whatever it may be, whether you're released or your contract expires, that you wait. So many times we have seen, and I think some people have been almost hurt by it. I think a great example is people like Keith Lee, people like Swerve Strickland, whatever you want to call it, that they leave WWE, or they leave, it's not just WWE, another company, shall we say. They leave and they go straight to AEW or whatever, and they do get lost in the shuffle. Timing is everything in pro wrestling, and I think, in fairness to Jonathan Gresham, he's pulled a bit of a blinder here, really, because very easily he could have signed, I'm sure he had offers. Once Ring of Honor went into hiatus, I'm sure that AEW made him an offer at the time, and he went, we'll see. I'm sure that Impact Wrestling, of course they would have wanted to keep him, and I'm sure they made him an offer at the time as well, and he said, I'm going to wait, see what happens with Ring of Honor. Whilst he was doing that, he was working these independent shows, he was doing these Terminus shows, which got a bit of buzz as well, and because he waited, now he's got this situation where he's working for AEW, but primarily he's going to be involved with Ring of Honor, whatever that does look like. And I'm sure as the champion, he has had conversations with Tony Khan about what this new Ring of Honor is going to look like. I don't know if he knows exactly the details when it pertains to the TV deal or a live event schedule or what have you. But it was funny because before even the Tony Khan purchase of Ring of Honor was announced, Jonathan Gresham was reported to be backstage, wasn't he? So I can't remember what the exact date it was, but he was reported to be backstage at some AEW tapings. And at the time, that was certainly curious because he was doing these Impact shows. He felt like he was more of an Impact guy than certainly an AEW guy at that point. Everyone said, oh, that's odd. Is Tony Khan trying to sign him? And then is he going to be stripped of the Ring of Honor World Championship or something like that? And then it was then announced that Tony Khan he's purchased Ring of Honor, and chances are at the time he was having those conversations with the Ring of Honor World Champion going, yep, I'm going to be purchasing the company. This is what's going to happen. You are featured into my plans, blah, blah, blah. I don't necessarily know if Ring of Honor is going to be built around him. It must be said, I still have my reservations about him being a credible world champion, it must be said. And maybe that's because I'm just, slightly old school in that sense. Look, and size is not everything in pro wrestling. People like Rey Mysterio are great examples of that, but he's not the biggest guy in the world. And certainly when they had that moment where it was on Battle of the Bouts, I believe, when he defended the Ring of Honor World Championship, and then they had Satnam Singh came out there, and I know he's a giant man, but just the size discrepancy was absolutely wild. So, yeah, but we'll see what happens when it comes to him in AEW and Ring of Honor going forward. But like I said, I enjoyed his stuff for a while in Impact Wrestling, but it looks like we're not going to see any more of Jonathan Gresham in Impact Wrestling, certainly for the foreseeable future. But you never know what can happen. AEW stars have been somewhat crossing over, even though the working relationship isn't as frequent as it once was. We had Frankie Kazarian at the last set of Impact Wrestling television tapings, so don't rule out Jonathan Gresham making some appearances for Impact in the future. Anyway, guys, let me know your thoughts on today's Impact Wrestling news stories in the comment section below. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon.